Now we're live.
Oh, now we're live. It only took like 20 seconds. Hello, and welcome to the Golden Sports Report, episode 77 on a Thursday. I'm Andy,
I'm Dylan.
I'm Chris.
and today's episode is going to be a bunch of random crap thrown together, and it'll be beautiful in the end. So, the Sabres made a big move yesterday. It was franchise changing as they made a trade with Winnipeg for a player of African American descent. He is a nearly point per game player for his team. He was drafted in 2009, and he's a scrub. So that's great. Sabres got Jordan Samuels Thomas for a conditional seventh round draft pick. Franchise changing. Franchise changing. He was a fifth round pick and went to college. So Winnipeg was like, "We're done with you. We don't want you." So the Sabres were like, "We'll take him. He's garbage. You probably won't ever see him play." With that, we can start with regular talk. Um, World Cup. Netherlands lost in penalty kicks to Argentina. Germany beat Brazil. That's actually, Chris used the correct term, thrashed. Some people used like destroyed, dominated. It was crazy. The amount of goals. There is a stat. I'll say it before the end. It was on Facebook.
I got it. Are you
No,
talking about
chat
the equivalent stats?
of the equivalent of how rare. Yeah,
Yeah, I got it here if you want me to.
like Chris,
The,
what is the equivalent to 7-1 in a World Cup game?
in a World Cup match, the equivalent to 7 goals scored across other popular American sports. In the NHL, it would be the equivalent to scoring 14 goals. So, yeah, that's a lot of goals being scored. You should, yeah. In the Major League Baseball, it would be the equivalent to letting in 22 runs. Pretty sure I've seen that before, or even more than that. But it's still embarrassing. In the NFL, it would be as if there was 107 points put up on the scoreboard by one team. So, say Seattle decided not to let up last Super Bowl and just continued to score, it would be like if Seattle won 107-8 last year. And for the NBA, while those games are very high scoring, it would be the equivalent to the NBA usually finish off around 100 points, the equivalent of 484 points by one team. So, yeah, Germany, there are some people that know how to do things in soccer. It's a good explanation.
Those things we don't, those things we don't really know though, because Sean's not here, and they kick the ball, and it goes in the net, and yeah. But I believe I've seen a 22 run game, a 14 goal game. I've never seen a 100 point or 400 point NFL or NBA game. I don't think someone's even scored over like 175 points in an NBA game. It'll take a lot of overtimes.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay. Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy. I'm gonna ask Dylan first. Dylan, did you watch either of these soccer games or no?
I saw parts of both of them actually, but I didn't. I don't think I saw. I saw. I think I saw the Germany Brazil game in its entirety, but I didn't see all. I only saw the penalty kick shootout of the Argentina Netherlands game.
So that makes you the most qualified to talk about soccer today, as me and Chris didn't watch that much soccer. So, Dylan, what did you see and get from both games? I know the one game was pretty lopsided. Did you watch the penalty kicks of the other? Maybe you heard something that they're talking about the other game. Um, what did you take from those games?
All right, I'll start with the Germany Brazil game. That one happened first, and I did. I predicted that Germany would win, but if I would have been told that it would have been a final score of 7-1, I would have told that person they're crazy. And I really didn't expect that. I mean, 30 minutes into the game, Germany had already scored 5 goals, and it was looking rather bleak for Brazil very early on in their home country being heavily favored to win the entire tournament. And then to lose like that was definitely, I think, surprising for most people, fans, players, everyone. I assume even Germany didn't anticipate going out and doing that well in the game. Like, you can be confident, but nobody goes into a game that confident against the team that's favored by that much to win it all. So Germany just showed they're a very strong team. I know we saw that the well when the U.S. faced them, we didn't lose by that much. So, but we've known all along that they were going to be one of the top contending teams throughout this tournament, and they definitely showed that by getting to the finals. They're probably going to put up a very good performance whether they win or lose in the finals, and I I didn't think Brazil would get to the finals, but they did really well until the what's his name, Thiago Silva got suspended for a game or something due to yellow card accumulation, and they lost Neymar to a broken back, as I mentioned in a previous final word, and that really losing two of your big players like that really seemed to just hurt them. They just collapsed there in that game, and it's a tough loss, but to be completely honest, I'm sure Brazil 4 years from now will be very competitive again in the World Cup. They always are. And Germany might win the World Cup. They're going to face Argentina. In terms of the Argentina Netherlands game, this was the one I was more excited about. I did, prior to the tournament, I predicted Argentina would be the champions, and hopefully I'm right. I don't know. Could still be wrong, whatever. But Lionel Messi, he's, in my opinion, I know some people can debate it, but in my opinion, and I know a couple people who agree with me, he's the best soccer player in the world right now. Um, he scored a nice goal in the penalty shootout. I didn't see the rest of the game, but obviously, if it went to the shootout, it was a lot closer than 7-1, and that was more of what I expected from either of the two games. Netherlands put up a strong performance throughout the tournament also, but came up just a little bit short there at the end. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. Argentina is a great team, and I wish I could say more from in terms of what during the game, but it's I expected that Argentina would beat the Netherlands, and it would have been really surprising to see two European teams in the finals when it's in Brazil, because normally the European teams don't have that good of a track record in South America playing, so that would have been a surprise. And so I think but it was a very good, it was a good game from what I saw of it from the shootout and a little bit of highlights, but the result was as expected, and I think it's on Saturday, the two losing teams will face off for third place, and then I think it's Sunday is when the final match is, and I think despite how much stronger Germany looked during the semifinals match, I don't think it's a sure thing that Germany will win. I'm actually still going to stick with my prediction that Argentina will win, but regardless, I think it'll be an entertaining game. Whether you like soccer or not, I would recommend you watch it. So, if I had to choose, I'm going to still stick with Argentina to win the entire tournament.
Argentina winning in Brazil, the rival of Brazil, and it'd be really interesting to see, what would happen in the streets of Brazil if Argentina won. All the Brazil fans just became Germany fans. Chris, what did you get from the two games? And who do you think is going to win?
I totally watched them, of course. I know that, like, I don't know. You know? Yeah. I know that, I know that Argentina has the best soccer player in the world right now, in Lionel Messi, and I know that so far in the tournament, Argentina scored only eight goals, but Germany scored 17, and Lionel Messi's actually scored half of Argentina's goals. So that just goes to show how much they rely on that guy to basically carry their team, and how much. And Germany's leading goal scorer is Thomas Müller with 5. So their scoring is spread out, while Argentina's is Messi and then a couple other guys. So I've always been a fan of teams that can really spread it out and be deep and have more than just one player do the job. So I'm going to say that Germany is going to win this tournament. I don't think it's going to be quite the thrashing as they put on Brazil, but I think Germany's going to win just because they have so many goals scored, and I don't know. I know Argentina's got good goaltending because they don't let. I think they've let in like 3 goals or something like that, something small like that. So, but still, Germany is now the leading goal scorer or point scorers in World Cup history or something like that. So, yeah, that's a thing. And yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of, not to like get off topic here, but like to compare it to like something that I actually understand, like hockey. It would be like the LA Kings facing off against no Anaheim, I guess. Kind of like the LA Kings facing off against Anaheim, because Anaheim's got their top 2 players, but then they got a bunch of young guys and then a bunch of old guys who can't play anymore. And then Germany would be LA, where they got their top players, but they've got a bunch of other good guys that can back them up. So I don't know, to compare it there, make it easier for any non-soccer fans who are trying to understand it. You're welcome. Yeah.
Great analogy from Chris Sexton. Kings and Ducks. Actually, honestly, I kind of tried to draw that in my head too. I was like, well, Germany is kind of like the Kings. They have a really deep team. But as you had a problem with, I have a problem trying to compare Argentina to a team. I watched overtime and the penalty kicks of the Netherlands Argentina game. I didn't watch any of Germany Brazil, and I, excuse me, guys, didn't miss anything. Um, Germany won by a lot, and they were a lot better team. I'm going to ask a question after mine. I know Dylan kind of alluded to it, but it was regarding Brazil. However, what I got from Netherlands Argentina, Argentina was more offensive and aggressive than Netherlands were. I feel like the Netherlands were trying to play defense instead of trying to play offense, and I think that was because they had a really young goalie. I guess their goalie is like 21 years old, the youngest in the tournament, and they got all the way to the end. Um, you know, Argentina, they're fast, but the Netherlands, their best players were kind of dinged up. Van Persie was sick. Van Persie, their best player, wasn't even playing in the last 10 minutes of the game. So that's a thing. But Argentina, Germany, I feel like Germany's going to win this game just because all you have to do is shut down Messi, and I feel like you win the game. Like, then Argentina has to go in a defensive setup, and then Germany can take advantage of that and just keep pounding away at the net. And eventually they will get a 1-0 lead and win the game because that's like how soccer works. You get a goal, once you get a goal, you're like 75% chance of winning the game. So, that's the thing. Um, kind of what the Netherlands missed on. The Netherlands got into the semifinals. I forget who they beat. I believe Costa Rica. I'm not sure, but they beat somebody to get to the semifinals in penalty kicks, and they subbed in their backup goalie in that game because he was a penalty kick specialist. Now, after watching the penalty kicks, I must say a specialist must be a gambler and a good one because you kind of sit in the net and you can either go right or you can go left. Now, you have 50-50 chance of getting that right. Therefore, you have 50-50 chance of more than likely saving the ball. So they left the starter in against Argentina. And the Argentinian goalie made 2 saves. And that's all he needed. The Netherlands goalie, I believe he made 1 save. He made 1 save, but he could have made 3 because he got the side right. However, he did not deflect the ball away from the net, and it went in twice off of his hands. So, I guess the Netherlands goalie failed. It's not that he had bad luck, he just literally fucked up. So, that's the thing. I am going to go with Germany in this game, though. I had Italy to start against Brazil, I think. but that's a thing. So Dylan, I'm going to ask you this now because you kind of alluded to the Brazil situation. Do you think that it was because of not necessarily, was it the injuries that lost Brazil the game, or do you believe being at home under pressure, do you think there was just too much adversity for Brazil to win that game? And do you think it was more the injuries or more being at home that may have led to their demise?
Well, that's a good question because I mean we can't say definitively whether like if those two guys were in what the outcome would have been. I'm sure it would not have been 7-1 if they had those guys, but it's I find it hard to say like, oh, if they had Neymar, then they would have won the game. I think I probably would have expected Germany to take it either way, but I don't know if the injuries were what necessarily killed them. They definitely would have been more competitive had they had those guys on the field, and it would have been a much closer game. Could have gone either way. And I don't know how much pressure necessarily was added by being at home because Brazil has a history of being very successful in games in their home country, and so it's just something they've always been good at. And I I could see a scenario where if they had those guys healthy and in the game, then they could have won, or if they had the guys in, they still could have lost. There's a few different factors, but as I think about it, in my mind, it's just I think it was they faced a better team, and the better team won. And Neymar, I know Neymar and Thiago Silva are great players, but I don't know if they would have really changed the outcome that much. It wouldn't have been 7-1 in my opinion, but I think we might still be seeing a Germany versus Argentina final here.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the question had to be raised. Some people were in the belief that Neymar was the best player in the world, and losing him was a big loss for Brazil. I don't know. I feel like maybe they had a slight bit of pressure, and then with the losses of those two guys, they put younger kids in there, and the younger kids kind of failed. But 7-1, it definitely says that even with those guys, Germany would have more than likely won anyways. Excuse me, it wouldn't have been a beating, but they would have won. So that's our soccer stuff. Um, so we're gonna talk about hockey because soccer is not our sport of choice to talk about. And there were some signings around the league that we can kind of talk about. They aren't the biggest of signings. Well, actually, Chicago did a big thing. They did a thing. So they kept Kane and Taves. Both. Great years. Chris, I'll ask you this question first. What is your opinion on the Pat Kane, John Taves deals? And, looking at Pittsburgh and their cap problems right now with Malkin and Crosby, do you think signing both of them to such big contracts was the right move?
No. They should have given Kane and to Buffalo so he could come and save us. Nah, not really. I don't know. I think it was. It was an okay idea You lock up your two franchise guys. They're still pretty young. They're going to be with you for a long time. In the with the ability to perform how they are right now, for probably, I know Pat Kane, was he 26 or 27 now? I think he's only 26, so he's still right around his prime area of performance. So he'll probably be able to perform at least for another 6 years at the level he is now. Taze, I believe, is even younger, so probably all 8 of those years. So they did a good job. Unfortunately, this means that they're going to have trouble signing players around them. Now, they have like Patrick Sharp and Marian Hossa, and those are great wingers to have around these guys. And they've got a few prospects in the pool who are going to end up looking okay, but they need to realize that although the cap room is going up, well, it went down. It wasn't as high as expected this year. I assume pretty soon it's going to start going up. So it could be good, it could be bad. It all depends on how the league wants to raise or lower the cap. If the cap ceiling is raised, and they're able to spend more money to give more different players, different complementary players, more money, then they're all set. I would look into trading Patrick Sharp or Marian Hossa, whichever one you value the least, to free up some cap space. Maybe bring in a younger prospect or a younger forward next season that falls into free agency, because obviously all the good ones are gone this year. Or trade one. Just be like, yo, here's Patrick Sharp. We'll take such and such for that, and maybe a pick or some shit like that. So, I don't know. I like the signing just because you're locking up your two franchise players for a long time. You may run into some cap issues down the line, which is most likely going to happen, but kind of like cross that bridge when you get there. Like, I'd rather have one Patrick Kane and one John Taze than a bunch of really crappy players. Yeah.
Yeah, they they tried. Well, they didn't try. They did succeed in signing their two best players, but I'm going to be looking at the cap stuff when I talk about it. Dylan, what is your thoughts and opinions on the signing of Kane and Taves?
Well, I think part of it is something that Chicago felt like they had to do. It may look like a bad decision that they're committing $21 million of their cap a year to 2 players, but they're 2 great players, and what would we be saying had they only kept one of them? Like, oh, it was a bad decision, they should have kept both. So there's going to be pros and cons towards keeping both or letting one of them leave, obviously. Um, it's, I don't know, 10.5 is a lot per each player, especially they have a lot of money committed into other players as well. One thing I read on Twitter actually is that this year, Getzlaff and Perry accounted for 24.3% of the Ducks cap. Crosby and Malkin were 26.3% of the Penguins cap. And next year, Kane and Taves are 28% of the Blackhawks cap space. That's definitely a lot for 2 players. You have over a quarter of your cap committed to the 2 guys. And I think Chris mentioned they might have to trade Patrick Sharp or Marian Hossa. They're both in between the $5 and $6 million range. Sharp makes a little bit more money, but Hossa's 35 and is signed until the end of time. But it's like 7 more years, which Hossa's not going to play till he's 42. But So I don't know which one which one they trade. Which one they could get more in return for. I would imagine you could get more in return for Patrick Sharp due to Hossa being 35 and being signed for a very long time. But that's something that could come back to bite them. Um, it's good that they got Brad Richards for only 1 year at $2 million. I think that's very cap friendly for them for this year, and because next offseason they're not going to be able to afford him. They only have three defensemen under contract: Seabrook, Keith, and Hjalmarsson. So it should be interesting to see what happens with Johnny Oduya, Nick Leddy, David Rundblad, guys like that. That maybe they can re-sign. Maybe they won't be able to afford. But Corey Crawford makes $6 million a year, and so they've got a lot of money committed to some big names, and filling in the depth might be a problem. I know Chris mentioned crossing that bridge when they get there. That bridge might be as soon as next offseason, and they'll have to figure out something, I think. But on the whole, they re-signed their two guys, and that's good for them. I mean, that's a big plus retaining those guys, and they will have. I'm very confident that they will have cap problems coming up, but I'm also very confident that they'll be a very competitive team in the Western Conference this year. And so overall, I think it'll be a good move, but we'll see what happens down the road with all the money they have committed and how they figure it out.
Yeah, looking at the cap geek now, Richards they won't re-sign, but you have a few of the starting, you know, guys for this team over their little run they've been having over the last 5 years. Like right now, they are over the cap by $2.2 million. So, excuse me, they have to find $2.2 million to cut out of their payroll before the season even starts next year. So I guess one could say they're already in cap trouble. Next year they are 7 players short of 22, which is what they need, and they only have $3 million to spend. And one of the players up for free agency as the forward is Brandon Saad, and he is one of their key players, and it'd be a real shame if they couldn't re-sign him. You know, Kane and Taves are better hockey players, but the one thing why I brought up Pittsburgh's problem right now is they don't have anybody at wing. Well, they had like Neal and Kunitz last year, so that's like having Sharp and Hossa. And then after that, they had nothing. And now Chicago has Sharp and Hossa, like they're Neal and Kunitz, and nothing next year. They're going to end up just like Pittsburgh. And to be honest, their goaltending is equal. Because Crawford isn't a choke artist. He's just not as good as Fleury in the regular season. So that's a thing. Kunitz, referring to the chat, Kunitz can score as many goals as those guys. So, you know, last year, Pittsburgh had problems, so they had to clear cap space, so they got rid of James Neal. You're going to have to see Chicago get rid of Hossa or Sharp. You know, who knows? Maybe a buyout was in order for Hossa. And, you know, you want to get yourself out of that contract, although you really like him. Getting rid of him might have been the best case scenario. Getting rid of that deal. you know, for Chicago fans, I'm sure they are really happy. They just don't see this chart here that says that they're fucked. So I bet if they saw this chart, they'd think otherwise. Nick Leddy already made a lot of money. Holy shit. So that's the thing. I guess because I mentioned Corey Crawford and we kind of mentioned him. The next thing is Corey Schneider got paid equal to Corey Crawford. Not the same amount of years, but that was one of the bigger signings over the last couple of days. That was like not Kane and Taves. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, do you think Schneider should have been paid equal to Crawford? Do you think New Jersey overpaid? What's your opinion on that?
How much did he get paid a year? How much was it?
It was 6 for 6, I think.
I don't know. Corey Schneider's never really been given a chance to fully blossom in New Jersey because he's been stuck behind Martin Brodeur for his whole career. Corey Schneider is now, what, 27 or 28, which means he is past his prime, and he is just now being given the full-time starting job. And that sucks for him, because he could have been a good goalie. He could have been, a solid starting goalie. But they decided to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and not get rid of Brodeur and not give Schneider the starting position full time, and just basically splitting time with Brodeur, and now it's too late. So they decided to give him. Well, yeah, I know he was in Vancouver, but even in Vancouver, he was behind Luongo, and it sucks. I know Brodeur said the reason he wasn't signing in New Jersey was because he wanted Schneider to be able to blossom, and he wanted to change the scenery himself. So, you never know. Corey Schneider could end up being a great thing for New Jersey, or he could end up being a bust. I don't know. I think he got overpaid. I think you should have given him maybe a couple-year deal to see how he goes. But, he's 27 or 28. In a few years, he's going to be a mediocre old goaltender that you're paying $6 million a year to pretty much sit there, because hopefully you'll bring in a new guy by then. Although it's New Jersey, so they'll probably ride him until he's 40. So, who knows? Personally, I say he got overpaid.
Some would agree. Dylan, what is your opinion on Corey Schneider's deal?
Well, personally, I think that $6 million a year is a lot to give to either Crawford or Schneider. I know it's important to have a good goaltender, but I wouldn't consider either of them to be like elite. I don't think either of them will ever win a Vezina, personally. But I can't say I blame New Jersey for giving him the contract. Now they have at least one good player for the next couple of years, because we already talked about how their future's not looking that bright after a couple of these old guys are gone, such as Yager, Eliash. They got Mike Camilleri now, so they're investing in right now, and I mean they traded a first-round pick to get Corey Schneider. I believe it was an early first round pick to the Vancouver Canucks, wasn't it? Pick like 9 or 10 or 14 or somewhere around there. But
It was, I believe, a top 10 pick.
yeah, so I mean, they gave up a lot to get this guy. Obviously, they're just going to want to make sure he sticks around. The worst thing would be to give up. It was the ninth overall selection with Vancouver took Bo Horvat, and it would be the worst thing for New Jersey to give up the ninth overall pick in the 2013 draft and then let the guy leave for nothing at some point eventually when they could have a top young prospect. Um, Schneider, he hasn't really had the chance to prove himself, as was mentioned before. I know the most he's ever started in a season is 45 games, and that was this year with the Devils. And he did put up a 921 save percentage and a 1.97 goals against, so it's very good. And if you made me choose which goalie would I rather have for the next whatever 7 years at $6 million between Schneider and Crawford, I would take Schneider. And he is a year younger, but that's not a huge difference. Goalies usually last a little bit longer, as we see Ryan Miller's still making $6 million a year in Vancouver now. And so I think I like the signing for New Jersey. It will really help if they can bring in some more people around them before all their current good players are gone. And so I guess I agree with the signing. I like it better than the signing of Corey Crawford by Chicago, to be completely honest. But that's just because I like Schneider a little bit better than Crawford. But that's personal. I'm sure everybody has their own opinion on that, and it could be different. I could see arguments either way. Just personal preference. I like Schneider. I think it's a sound investment, and we'll see if it pays off, if they can get the other pieces in to give him the goal support to make them a good team again.
Oh, he's going to need to. Looking at this cap, they don't have the same problem as Chicago in terms of how they got into cap trouble. But, you know, when they have guys like Eliash, Camilleri, Ryan Clough all making an average of like, you're going to have a bad day. So, Dinas Subris is going to be making $3 million in the next 2 years still. He's 100 years old. Uh, Zajac and Schneider are the only players signed beyond the next 5 years. They have they only have one defenseman under contract going into next season. One defenseman. Just one. Bad signing, just by reading all that. That's a lot of money to spend on Schneider. You know, you need to lock up a goalie, and they believe that he can be there, but that's a lot of money. Like, I would have signed to a shorter deal, 2 or 3 years, a 3-year deal, because that's when all these contracts are up for them. And then you can go forward thinking about, okay, we only have 5 players under contract going into 2016, 2017. They only have 5 players under contract. So at that point, you make your decision. Is Corey Schneider the goalie for us for the rest of his career? He would be like 30, 31, but would he be your goalie? Now you've locked him up. he's kind of unknown. He's had one season where he's played 45 games, but I'm one of those big guys that says I like goalies that play a lot of games because not every goalie has proven that they can play a full slate, and Corey Schneider is one of them. He hasn't proven that he can play a 60-game schedule, 65-game schedule. And this is going to be different for them because Marty Brodeur, since 1993, has played 60, 70 games a year. And he truly has shown what a great goalie he is. But, Schneider's numbers were good last year. Hopefully he can withstand a longer schedule and, perform at a higher level. Well, perform at that level for a longer time period because if he does not play well, New Jersey's not going anywhere. Not with this team. It's a retirement home. Except for Marty Brodeur, he got out. So, that's the thing. And I guess the last signing we'll talk about is the former captain of the Buffalo Sabres. He was such a great leader. He was just so good. Such a good hockey player. Steve Ott got signed to St. Louis for $2.6 million over 2 years. I have to say, good job not re-signing him because he wanted $5 million and we were willing to give him like $4 million, and he ended up getting signed for half of how much he wanted. And if we had signed him to $5 million for 5 years, it looked like Ryan Close's contract with New Jersey, and that would have just been a mess. So I'm happy we didn't re-sign him. They need him in St. Louis because Sobotka left for the KHL, which is a shame because I really like Vladimir Sobotka this year. I thought he was coming into his own as a good shutdown center, and that's too bad that he left. But St. Louis can replace him. They have a great team, great prospects. So that's the thing. Dylan, I'll let you go first on this. What's your opinion of Steve Ott's contract with St. Louis and things of that nature?
I just have one question real quick. It's $2.6 million per year.
Yes, I believe for 2 years.
All right, so I was of the mindset that like if he came back to the Sabres, whatever, he's a depth player, don't make him captain again. But he's fine to bring back. But I wasn't one of the people like championing the let's bring back Steve Ott thing. But I think it's good that he's staying in St. Louis. They're a good team, very deep team, and provides more depth there. Can come in and play. He's not going to be asked to be their captain or their best player like he was here. And I think 2.6 million is pretty good for him to over the 2 years. It's a lot better than paying him 5. So they got him at a pretty good price. He should provide a sound two-way play for them and help them. For having him for 2 whole seasons, most likely. And I like the signing. I'm not heartbroken that he's not a Buffalo Sabre again, although I know he was a fan favorite, and I'll admit I was a big fan of his. I advocated for the captaincy prior to the season, but we're going forward with our rebuild, and he can go forward and be on a contender for a couple more years and in 2 off seasons. Who knows where he'll go? So I think it's good for him. It's pretty good for St. Louis too, and it's good for the Buffalo Sabres as well. So a win-win-win in this situation.
Yeah, it was a win for everybody. Really happy he's not with us anymore. Might be able to win a cup. So He'll still be able to win his cup. If only the Sabres had made that condition that Steve Ott resigned. Chris, what is your thoughts on Steve Ott being re-signed by St. Louis?
Okay. Pretty much. I don't know. I agree with Dylan. Would it have been nice to have him back? Sure. He was a pretty good centerman and a really good penalty killer, and he was exciting to watch. But he was not a great hockey player by any means. He was not captain material. I don't know. St. Louis lost Sabutka, so that's rough for them. Now they needed a kind of a runner-up at that second line center position kind of player. So yeah, that's the thing. He'll be their shutdown-ish center. He's not like the best centerman, but he's okay. So I don't know. And we dodged a bullet on overpaying him. I think if he was going to be here for another 5 years, he'd end up being, what, 37 or 38 or 39, one of those numbers. And we'd have a situation with, like Chicago is now with Hossa or Sharp. And paying dudes who are 10 years over their prime the same amount of money that you would pay a guy who's about to go into his prime. And it's just not worth it. You'd end up being like a third or fourth line player at that age, and we'd be paying $5 million, and that's ridiculous. So I'm glad we didn't sign him. If he had signed us for the same amount of money for the same amount of years, I would be happy because we didn't spend a lot of money on him, and we got him for a couple more years. For a couple of years until all of our guys are ready to go. But I'm not overly pissed off that we missed out on him. So.
Yeah, I bet Sean would be so furious that Steve Ott went to St. Louis and he'd make a scene and do all that. It's a shame he's not here. We could really have used him. Okay, so that was pretty much our topics for today, as we are 7 minutes from an hour, and we're about to do final words, so we'll get there. Thank you for watching this far. We appreciate it. As our views continue to go up, we will be more enthused, I guess. We're pretty enthusiastic as it is, but you know, when people are watching, it makes you feel real good. So keep watching, keep commenting, do all that. So, final words. Who wants to go first, Chris or Dylan?
I'll go first. My final word today. Okay, good talk, Andy. My final word today is not about hockey. Any players being stupid. Mixing it up this time, we're going to go with some new rules being introduced to the AHL, which we could see up in the NHL in a couple of years, possibly even next year. Certainly not this year, but it will be introduced to the AHL this year. Although I think that might get a little confusing if we're calling players up and sending them down, having to get used to the rule changes. Anyways, one of them isn't like major, and it's something we've all been looking for a long time. Well, not all of us. Some of us enjoy them. Is a new rule for fighting. Um, the new rule is if you fight more than once in one game, so if you get into 2 fights, you are immediately given a game misconduct, and you will no longer be able to play in that game. You're out. So I know I don't know what league it was, but there's a few leagues around the world, I think mostly European leagues, that even if you're in one fight, you're done. Game misconduct. I think that's a little harsh because we do enjoy a fight now and again. You shouldn't get thrown out of the game for defending your teammates or hitting a guy or something like that. But 2 fights, you might be going a little overboard. So yeah, that's a thing. That's going to be the new rule there down in the AHL. The next rule is a little weird. I didn't really hear anything about it or why we would want to get rid of it. But apparently they're kind of trying to get rid of shootouts. They will be increasing the amount of time in the overtime period to 7 minutes and during the regular season. The 7 minutes. The first 3 minutes will be 4-on-4, and then the last 4 minutes will be 3-on-3. I don't know why, but that's the new rule. I don't know if it was last year, but there was a rule introduced recently, I'm pretty sure it was last year, where every player from now on who is drafted or signed or anything like that, they have to wear a visor. And any player who has played like 25 games or less in the NHL or with their team, I think it's with the NHL, now is mandatorily having to wear a visor. So basically they're just saying, hey, you gotta wear a visor now, protect your face and such. So that's a thing as well. But also one more penalty or one more rule change. I know I saw it a couple times. I saw it in person versus when we were Sabres versus Nashville Predators. Mike Fisher lost his helmet and he continued on with the play. Can't do that anymore. If let me read this correctly here. Okay, yeah. Basically, if the helmet comes off, you have to leave the ice immediately, or you have to put the helmet back on. If you don't do that, you're getting a penalty. And I think they also changed it so that if you get like 3 minor penalties or 3 major penalties, something like that, 3 major penalties, I do believe it was, in one game, then you're given a game misconduct as well. So just a bunch of penalty changes and overtime changes this year for the AHL that we could end up seeing in a few years up in the NHL if it works out.
I remember hearing at the GM meetings them wanting to get rid of shootouts, and I believe Detroit's GM was the big advocate for 3-on-3 overtimes after 4-on-4 overtimes. So I believe that's where it originated. I agree with the other things, though. If you take multiple major penalties in a game where you fight twice, I think you're done. I think it's time to go sit down and take a shower early. So that's my opinion on that. Dylan, what is your final word?
All right, so for my final word, I have 2 things to mention, but one's fairly quick, and they're both about baseball. So, of course. So first, I'll start with the bad news. The Yankees' $155 million man Masahiro Tanaka is coming off of his 2 worst starts of his career so far, his first 2 starts that are not considered quality starts, has been put on the 15-day DL and is traveling to Seattle to see the Yankees team doctor because for some reason there's a big conference in Seattle and all the doctors are there right now. So he left the team to go see the doctor. Obviously, when someone's put on the DL, you don't want to see that. It's usually not something that's considered good news, but coming right before the All-Star break, it still could be just nothing. He could be out for the minimum 15 days, or it's an elbow injury. And if it's Tommy John surgery, I'm going to cry. Not really, but I'll be highly upset. And I mean, it would be terrible to lose another pitcher to Tommy John this season, not only because he's the Yankees' best player this year, but because he's 25 years old, so another great young pitcher to join Jose Fernandez and Matt Harvey and all the other pitchers who are unfortunately undergoing this procedure this year. So hopefully it's nothing serious. I'll definitely keep you updated on what's going on. I'm hoping for the best, and we'll see how that plays out. Part 2 of my final word has to do with the All-Star Game and the Home Run Derby. The captains being Troy Tulowitzki in the National League and Jose Bautista in the American League have each announced 3 members of their Home Run Derby teams, leaving 1 spot vacant currently on each team that's yet to be announced. And so for the NL, the participants, obviously Tulowitzki, who's the captain, and then he chose Giancarlo Stanton, who's my early favorite to win it, as you all know. I'm a huge Giancarlo Stanton fan. Yasiel Puig, who's another pretty good choice, and the name is escaping me. Todd Frazier, third baseman of the Cincinnati Reds, who was a surprise pick. He's having a phenomenal year in Cincinnati right now when most of that team has been really struggling so far, but he's been great. Obviously earned himself a spot on the All-Star team and should be interesting to see. And with the 5th member is yet to be decided, but a lot of speculation is saying that if Justin Morneau wins the NL final vote, then he'll be chosen, but I'm not positive when they announce the final vote winners. And AL, Captain Jose Bautista, and he also chose Yoenis Cespedes, the reigning Home Run Derby champion from last year, outfielder for the Oakland A's. Adam Jones, outfielder for the Baltimore Orioles, and Brian Dozier, second baseman for the Minnesota Twins, who I'm fairly confident that the main reason he's on is because it's in Minnesota, and I mean, I don't think of him as the biggest power hitter. Generally, you don't think of second basemen like that, except Robinson Cano, whose power has dipped this year. But they had to get it's good to see not hometown guy, but it would be less exciting for Minnesota fans if they didn't get to see any Minnesota players play in the All-Star game. So Brian Dozier will be in the Home Run Derby, and maybe he'll surprise us. Maybe he'll win it. I'd be entertained with that, but don't expect it. And the final thing about the Home Run Derby is that I've learned about the new format that they're doing it in. They previously did it so that just the top home run hitters in each round advance. But under this new format, they do round 1, and the top 3 from each league advance to round 2, whereas the top home run hitter in each league gets a bye, and the number 2 and 3 guys face off. Whoever hits more home runs faces off against the number 1 guy. Winner of that goes to the final round to face the winner of the player from the opposite league, so that it will always be AL versus NL. That's not something that's necessary for a Home Run Derby, because the Home Run Derby doesn't determine things like the actual All-Star Game does, which determines home field advantage, in case you don't know. And but changing it up, I think it's always fun to watch. Should be fairly exciting, and Giancarlo Stanton's going to win it. I'm saying that now. I'm going to stick with my prediction, but of course, we'll see. I should have looked up the date, whenever it is. July 14th at 8 p.m. So, tune in then for the Home Run Derby.
Next Monday, 14th. Also, another thing about baseball, Chris Sale got voted in because they realized they made a mistake and the fans had to get Chris Sale back in the game. And he proved it last night by pitching another quality start. So, that's that. I was going to say something. Oh, about all-star games in general for baseball, regarding baseball. I love that home field advantage in the World Series is determined by the all-star game. Where in every other league, it's like a joke. But in baseball, like they want to get all the players in the game, but the game actually means something. There is a real winner and loser. So I think that's really interesting. But my final word is NASCAR New Hampshire. They race here twice a year. It's a mile flat track. It is like literally flat. So it's got tight turns. It races like a short track. Passing is eh. One time, the last time a driver led every single lap was here in 2000 by Jeff Burton. Jeff Burton has the most wins here with 4. He no longer races in the series. He may be driving a car this weekend, though, part-time. Not sure. But last year, the winners were Brad Keselowski and Ryan Newman, which means, woo, Jimmy Johnson won't win this week. So, that's good. Ford is on a 3-race winning streak, which is good for them. I think they'll extend it to 4, because I really think Brad Keselowski's going to win this race. He dominated last year when he raced here. The average speed during qualifying is 135, 136 miles per hour. Oh, those were pole winners. Aw, Brian Vickers and Matt Kenseth won last year. That's disappointing. Brian Vickers won part-time. But, so I'm still going with Keselowski, but the average speed during the race is about 100 to 105 miles per hour. Not a very fast track. As I said, it's kind of like a short track, tight turns. 300 laps. The race is relatively short, so that's a good thing. And let's see here. Most of the time you win from starting first place. If you start first place, you have the best chance of winning. And if you start from 13th place, you have the second most chance of winning. So whoever starts first and 13th, they have the best luck going forward with past history. So the race here, this will help with kind of giving an idea of who's going to do well in the chase, because New Hampshire's second race is during the chase, which matters a lot. So it will either right before the chase or during the chase, New Hampshire happens, which means you got to win. If you're good here, you have a good chance of at least making it to the second round of the Chase Championship Series. So that's a big deal. And that's kind of it for the episode. As I said earlier, thank you for watching. Like, comment, favorite, subscribe. Everything keeps going up, so that's good. Like to see more subscribers. Last thing, YouTube updated their demographics into, like, before, I guess, when they did their demographics of gender and country, they only did computer views, which is about 75% of our views. So it took into account the other 25% from phones and iPods and crap like that. And for a while there, we had no female viewers. Now, all of a sudden, with this update, 5% of our viewers are female. So, thank you for watching. So yeah, didn't know that up until today. So, that's that. Thank you for watching. That was the Golden Sports Report episode 77. Bye.
Peace out.
Adios.